It's Derek with Gold and Black Radio, and I just came from my local Academy Sports and Outdoors store. The most festive gear of the year is back, guys, at Academy Sports and Outdoors. Don't miss the limited edition Magellan Outdoor Christmas Market Collection only at Academy. Get exclusive 2025 gear and gifts for all your holiday parties, fun family photos, and Christmas morning traditions. Check out the entire collection, from matching PJs to exclusive new Mossy Oak Snowdrift camo styles and more. Shop in-store or at academy.com. Need it fast? Get same-day delivery powered by DoorDash. Let your holiday fun begin with a collection only at Academy.
Welcome into yet another edition of Gold and Black Radio. First one of November, presented by our friends at Academy Sports and Outdoors. I'm your host, Derek Schultz. For the first time in a long time, the number one team in the land comes calling to Ross-Ade Stadium as Purdue plays host to the top-ranked and defending champion Ohio State Buckeyes tomorrow afternoon. We'll talk Boilers and Buckeyes in just a few with Tom Dienhart and Doug Jellison, and talk plenty of hoops with Brian Neubert as Matt Painter's squad made their regular season debut earlier this week. But first, wanted to give a shout-out to our terrific Gold and Black Radio sponsors, such as Purdue Federal Credit Union, a proud partner of Purdue Athletics and the official credit card for Purdue fans. Boiler up. East End Grill and Ripple & Company, two distinctive bistros across the street from one another on the far end of Main Street, the perfect place for your next event. The Whitaker Inn, this Midwestern oasis, is perfect for relaxing staycation or a weekend getaway. Escape from the ordinary at the Whitaker Inn. Sand Valley Resort, as the seasons change, escape to Sand Valley. Over 12,000 acres of prehistoric sand dunes transform into a breathtaking winter retreat. Glide through snow-covered trails, feel the thrill of fat tire biking, or simply find stillness by crackling fire with cozy accommodations and farm-to-table dining. Sand Valley is where adventure and connection come together. Book your winter escape today at sandvalley.com. And the Purdue Institute for Cancer Research. The Purdue Institute for Cancer Research has a history of innovation and one goal for the future: defeat cancer. Purdue brings together world-class Boilermakers scientists from all across the university, conducting cutting-edge research that uncovers, saves lives. Join the fight and donate to the Purdue Institute for Cancer Research today. Let's bring on the wise and tenured Tom Dienhart, as well as his young Padawan, Doug Jellison, goldenblack.com, to talk some football. Guys, I got to make jokes because, they're 2-7 or whatever and have a 15-game Big Ten losing skid. So trying to add some, kind of levity to our Friday shows. But, Tom, a lot of things have changed in major college football in the past few years, but one thing that has remained the same is that Ohio would be in that if you're making that tier one, they are in tier one from a talent standpoint. I think most folks assumed that this would be a team that was going to inevitably take a slight step back with all the talent that they lost from the title squad. But, man, they've put it on pretty much everybody that they played since that opener against Texas.
Yeah, they just can't be Michigan, Derek.
That's right.
But heck, they're still going to the college football playoff, winning the national championship, and like you said, here we are, another year, and watch, rinse, repeat. And the Buckeyes are right there in the thick of things again. 8-0, the number one team in the country. And I tell you what, this team's a little different than last year's team. Derek, talking to some people over there. They're going to throw the football, obviously, with that young quarterback, Julian Sand. I believe he's completing 80% of his passes, if you can believe it. I couldn't even use that with a Nerf football in the backyard when I was a kid. And, of course, having receivers like Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith helps. So, yeah, they're going to come out slinging, man. They can really throw the ball around. And the defense, though, that may be the real story about this 2025 Ohio State team. Number one in America. And the only defensive stat that matters, points allowed. I think it's 6.9 points per game, 55 points they've given up through 8 games. Of course, some teams give that up on one Saturday afternoon. So it's a big juggernaut coming to town, Derek. Purdue's going to have its hands full, obviously.
Obviously, with Purdue's record, you got to dig a little bit for positives, but you wrote about it this week. Purdue did during that USC, Notre Dame, Illinois stretch when they're giving up 35, 40, 45 points per game, gobs and gobs of yards, especially in that Illinois game. Obviously, Ohio State, whole different ball game from those three teams, and certainly from Northwestern and Minnesota and some of the recent competition. But what have you thought about the defensive effort in these last few games, just kind of adding everything
Obviously the point total, it's been a step in the right direction, right? Going from I think they gave up 44 points a game across the games against USC, Notre Dame, and Illinois. I think they're hovering just over 20 over these last 4 games, and obviously they've lost all 4. But I think Mike Shear's unit is taking steps in the right direction, albeit it's against offenses that aren't as potent as the USC's and the Notre Dames and the Illinois and the Ohio States, and really the next 3 that they're going to play, right? Because Washington and IU have really good offenses as well. But this is going to be the big test. Can they give the offense somewhat of a shot to stay in this game? I tend to think no. Just with like Tom mentioned, Julian Sayin, who as of Tuesday was the front runner for the Heisman, at least from MGM's their odds. And then the wide receiver tandem that Mike Shear called the best in the country in Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith, and Bo Jackson out of the backfield. He's a really good freshman running back too. So it's no surprise to look at Ohio State and see that they don't really have any weaknesses, especially on offense. And this is going to be the test for Purdue because they've kind of found their mojo a little bit, and I think that they've been able to keep the team in games just because the defense is performing a little bit better. Now, can you do it against the best team in the country? That's going to be the question.
Tom, I'll thank you an end at Purdue, as that was announced this week. But the 2 guys that will replace him are Malachi Thomas and Antonio Harris, and they've been effective at times. I'm particularly interested in Harris because Thomas is out of eligibility after this year. He's a veteran player, but new world with the portal and all that. But given Harris is a Southern Indiana kid like Maccabee, he's also a walk-on. One of the few to stick through the coaching change last year, and he was just put on scholarship. Could he be, or could he at least factor into the long-term plans?
Yeah, guys think he's going to be a guy that they want back. Now, whether he's the number 1 guy next year, I'm not sure about that. I got to think that they're going to go to the portal and fish out at least 1 back they think can be their starter. Who knows? Maybe they'll get 2. You need depth there anyway, right?
Yeah.
And we saw that displayed this year, right? But yeah, I tell you what, he's shown a lot. He's a kid that, I would ask some questions early on and talk to some people, and they would say, hey, right now Antonio Harris is the number 2 running back on the team. It wasn't Jaheim Merriweather, it wasn't Malachi Thomas. This was early on, and we've seen flashes of him throughout this year, and now he's getting an extended audition, if you will. So a guy with some speed, they had him back there returning kicks at one point too. So and a hungry player as well. So running back's been far from the issue on offense, Derek. Issues up front and issues at wide receiver and at tight end. And I think the last 4 games, they're only averaging 15 points a game. And the offense overall scoring has sunk to 16th in the Big Ten, only getting 22.1 points per game. We know the issues in the red zone, too. That's a big part of it as well. You know what, guys, man? Watching that game last weekend again, just the there's no explosive ability. There's no real big play ability. There's no real gotcha guy on that offense that's really going to bust it for you. They're going to have to go 10, 11, 12 plays, 3, 4, 5 yards at a time. You can't do that consistently. Again, that's the biggest issue. There's no real dynamic ability on that offense, especially on the edge.
Dub, anytime a team like Ohio State visits and comes to your house, that ramps up the atmosphere a bit and seems to be a good time to bring recruits in. Thankfully, I read somewhere that the losses don't really impact them, because you can kind of politic that either way. It can be, hey, see, this is how much we need you after the fact. You wrote this was the biggest batch of the entire season.
Yeah,
is that right?
it's pretty hefty. You got guys like Dewey Young, 4-star offensive lineman out of Ohio State, who really likes Purdue. You got Jace Brewer out of Franklin Central, 4-star edge, and he's high on Purdue. I think, both of those guys are kind of national level recruits. So Purdue just keeping a hand in the fight. I think you can see sometimes they can hang around and potentially jump in and make a significant NIL offer or something of that sort. Even though a lot of people might write them off in those recruitments. the guy that I have circled, and I know Tom and I have talked about him, is Ben Musser, four-star quarterback out of Georgia. He was committed to Virginia Tech. Obviously, after Brent Pry got fired, he reopened his recruitment, and he's the guy that Purdue really likes. I think he's in their top group. He's a top target for them in that class, and it wouldn't surprise me to see them kind of push for a commitment coming out of this weekend and kind of gauge where he is. So that's a guy I have my eye on. Keon Thomas is another guy that I've read about a lot, running back out of Warren Central. All these guys are in the 2027 class. I should have mentioned that off the top, but Keon Thomas has really broken out for Warren Central this year, and I think he's one of their top guys at running back too. So he's going to be back on campus. So a long list of guys that are going to be there, and Purdue's going to have their opportunity to impress them. And like you said, even if they lose, I think, and talking with a lot of these recruits, I think that the relationship and the fit and the scheme kind of matters a little bit more rather than kind of where the program is right this second. I think a lot of guys look at their relationship with the coach and how much a coach wants them, and working on building that relationship to kind of determine where they want to go for the next 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if this season had impacted recruiting momentum at all, but in your opinion, has it mostly remained the same because of what you just said with the relationships?
Yeah, I think the jury's still kind of out on that, at least as of right now. You still got several guys that are on flip watch that I've written about over the last several months. Armari Towns, 3-star tight end, he's visiting UNC this weekend. Chemistry Young has been pursued by North Carolina State and UNC. K-Trail Webb, Florida State's still in play with him. There's another one I'm forgetting off the top of my head. But still, Purdue's going to have to fight to hang on to some of these guys. And but as of right now, none of them have flipped. And my timeline on Twitter was going crazy today. I'm talking about guys committing and flipping elsewhere. So, and that's every school. I think Alabama's going to lose guys. Georgia's going to lose guys. It doesn't matter who you are, you're going to lose guys. But Purdue's going to have to fight to hang on to their guys, closing in on a month until early signing period.
Tom Lessing, 1989, a long time ago. That obviously predates Dub. That is actually the first sports memory that I have. My beloved 1989 Atlantic Division champion New York Knicks, who were the 2 seed in the Eastern Conference until they met up with Michael Jordan fresh off the Craig Elo shot. And the 6-seeded Bulls, and Jordan proceeded to score, I think, 45 points a game in that series, and then they ran into the bad boy Pistons. But just a little history lesson there. That's the last time Purdue hosted a number 1, and it was also a defending champ in Notre Dame coming off their 1988 title. We'll talk about the historical perspective of Purdue history for the last 60 years. But you've been around Purdue football a really long time as well and have an extensive memory. I'd argue that Purdue's upsets, including the upsets of number 1, are really entrenched in the fabric of the program and kind of cut to the fiber of who this program is. Because you look on paper and you look at their wins and losses or their Big Ten championships, and you would think, this isn't really a big deal. But I think really like their calling card and their claim to fame is sort of that Boilermaker history, is it not?
Yeah, that's exactly how they got it, Derek. You summarized it perfectly, as I would expect you to. Boilermakers going back to the 1950s, some big upsets. Dale Samuels beat Notre Dame, Lynn Dawson, the Golden Boy, and he was the reason why they started the Golden Girl at Purdue. The Golden Boy needed the Golden Girl.
Really?
So here we are. The Golden Girl is still marching on as a tradition today. It's kind of a cool tradition. So yeah, those 1950s upsets in Notre Dame really, echoed across the country. You heard that Boilermaker moniker. And there were some subsequent ones as well over the years against other highly ranked teams. And in particular, Derek Schultz, 1976 was the last time Purdue beat a number 1 team. That was the mighty Michigan Wolverines, who came into Ross-Ade Stadium, not far from where I speak to you. And they got unceremoniously dumped. And it really cost Michigan a national championship. So who knows, maybe Purdue has some tricks up its sleeve. But overall, Alan will know for sure, but I think Purdue was 7-11 all time against the number 1 team. Like you said, 1989. Those Lou Holtz Fighting Irish teams that never lost to Purdue. And then the last time Purdue played at one was the next year. Notre Dame number one again in 1990 up in South Bend. So I couldn't believe it had been that long since they played.
Yeah,
I would have sworn Ohio State was number one at some point in the 35 years since then, but I was wrong, as I usually am a lot of times. But it's kind of fun. I think it's fun, man, having a team like this in your backyard. I mean, as a kid, and just as a fan, if you love college football, this is what you want to see.
No doubt about it. It's cool. And I think there were a couple of number twos sprinkled stuck in there. But yeah, you're right. I was a little surprised too to see that statistic earlier today. Follow along Tom and Dub for the best Purdue football and recruiting coverage on the internet at Tom DeanHart1, at Dub Jellison on X, right here on goldenblack.com as well. We'll get you guys back on for the roundtable coming up at the end of the show. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Derek.
That's Tom DeanHart and Dub Jellison. This portion of Golden Black Radio brought to you by our friends at East End Grill and Ripple & Company, two distinctive bistros across the street from one another on the far end of Main Street. The perfect place for your next event. Tom had the chance to catch up with the voice of the top-ranked Buckeyes and defending champions, Paul Keels. He joined Tom earlier this week for a conversation about Saturday's game, and here is our opponent preview from the voice.
All right. Hey, really pleased and excited to be joined today by the voice of the Ohio State Buckeyes, Paul Keels, legendary voice. Paul, thanks for giving us some of your time. Big game this weekend, Stadium. The number one ranked Ohio State Buckeyes will matriculate to West Lafayette. Let's jump right in and kind of tell our viewers and listeners what they can expect from the Buckeye offense on Saturday.
He is really excel at passing the football. Julian Sand has been on quite a tear, and he's got great targets to throw to with Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, and others. So while Ohio State certainly is interested in trying to achieve balance and look to get more explosive, their passing game has been more than on point, and it would stand to reason, and a lot of that has to do with how well the offensive line is played. But it would stand to reason that Ohio State most likely is going to continue to emphasize throwing the football as well as Julian Sand has thrown it.
Be a tough test for Purdue secondary, Paul, that at times has really struggled this year to cover. And also, now defensively, Paul, tell us what we can expect from the Buckeyes on that side of the ball. It looks like it's just an exceptional unit. I believe it's number one in the nation scoring defense right now.
Well, Tom, what they've been able to do, and with the influence of their new coordinator, Matt Patricia, as well as the other returning, pressure on from all points. The defensive line has played very well, has been very disruptive, but you've seen outstanding play from their two linebackers, Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese, both of whom have played different positions in the past. Sonny started as safety. Arvell Reese at one point was playing to kind of coming at you from all over the field. And the other kind of X factor that has developed out of all of this is Caleb Downs, their All-American safety. You could see him line up at times right at the line of scrimmage. You could see him play out wide, and you can see him in a traditional safety position. So what they've been able to do is create a lot of different combinations that have created confusion.
Okay, Paul. The Buckeyes, I think, are about a 28.5-point favorite here. 8-0, their stakes are high, obviously, playing for a Big Ten and a national championship. How do you see this game unfolding on Saturday?
Well, it's easy to think that Ohio State would probably come in and have an easy time of it. But all you have to do is think back to 2018 when Ohio State was ranked number 5 in the country, a night game there at Ross-Ade Stadium. And it's been a place that really, since 2000, Ohio State's come in there and at times has had trouble. But this seems to be a very determined team, not only bent on trying to win a Big Ten championship game, but get back to playing like they did last year for a national championship. So it's kind of easy to guess. And Tom, that's all it is. You would think that Ohio State would come in and have a rather easy time of it. But again, you think back to some of the problems they've had going to Ross-Ade Stadium in the past, and that's one of the things that's just a tiny little bit.
Yeah, it's hard to explain, but Purdue kind of has been a little bit of a pain in Ohio State's side in the last 5, 10, 15 years or so by upsetting them a few times. We'll see if the Boilermakers, Paul, have any Hopefully it'll be a good ball game. The weather should be good. A nice cool fall afternoon. Look forward to seeing you in the press box, and appreciate you stopping by and dropping some Buckeye knowledge on us.
My pleasure, Tom. Glad to do it.
That's Paul Keels, the voice of Ohio State, and we appreciate him joining Tom for that opponent preview. I feel like it would be very easy to go on to other shows and preview Ohio State. Yeah, they're number one. They've got a couple of NFL receivers, and they're really good like they always are. Bang, there you go. There's the entire segment there. No, obviously there's always analysis involved, even with these teams that are the Death Star type teams like Ohio State is, and they're very much so that, again, locked and loaded, and no such thing as a step back for a program like that. It's a nice place to be. There are some rain chances on Saturday. Not so nice place to be for West Lafayette, but will they interfere with the game itself? We'll leave that to the expert as meteorologist
Chad Evans here with a look at your forecast for your Saturday. Purdue versus the Ohio State Buckeyes. Clouds increasing after sunshine initially, and then some showers begin to come in late in the game. The first part of the game, right up to halftime, looks good, but it's going to start to sneak in to the heart of our area, with temperatures rising to 58 for a high. Not much wind initially, then the wind beginning to increase from the southwest later on in the day. Boiler up.
Thanks to Chad for the weather report. Check out Chad's weather blog. That is the title of it, Chad's weather blog on Substack, where he does an outstanding job, especially with the local forecasts, Lafayette and Tippecanoe County as well. We appreciate Chad's contributions on this show each and every week, which is brought to you by our friends at Purdue Federal Credit Union, a proud partner of Purdue Athletics and the official credit card for Purdue fans. Now we welcome on the publisher of goldenblack.com. We call him the Grand Poobah. It is Alan Karpick with our historical perspective. And, Alan, I know that you were listening. We just kind of talked about this with Tom. I too was surprised, considering Michigan or Ohio State or even Notre Dame here and there, like, the 2012 team, I think we're like at the end of the season, but they had that long history with Notre Dame. A decent amount over the last 30 years, those teams have been number one at some point. I was just really shocked to see that Saturday marks the first time since '89 that Ross-Ade will.
Yeah, you think about Ohio State, and I think 9 with Orlando Pace when they were having a hard time beating Michigan, but they came in and Eddie George and looked like they were. I was surprised too to find. I think they were 4th ranked when they came in and clubbed Purdue in 1996, but in a 42-14 game. But it's been. Ohio State as a top 5 team, dang near every year they've been here, with the exception, I think, of about 2004, a game that Purdue won when Troy Smith was only a sophomore quarterback, the future Heisman Trophy winner. So, yeah, it is impressive. It is also impressive, as you guys talked about, the fact that Purdue has won 7 games against number 1 teams. I don't expect this to happen on Saturday, but then again, some of those other 7 games didn't expect them to happen either, and that's what makes it interesting. Purdue's Boilermaker moniker, you guys mentioned that, Tom had mentioned that as well. That really is the fabric of Purdue football. It's why it's on the map. They go back to the newsreels of 1950 when Purdue beat Notre Dame, and Neil Armstrong, who was the first man to walk on the moon, he watched the newsreel of that game, decided Purdue might not be a bad idea to go to school, and the rest is history. So that's where college football ties into the fabric of the university and to what Purdue football has traditionally hung its hat on.
I know the overall series says 42-15-2. I think I have that right, which, obviously it's been one-sided, right? It's Ohio State. But seeing as how elite they've been, you could argue Purdue's actually had some modicum of success in this series, certainly more success than some of the other middle to lower tier teams in the Big Ten, especially when it comes to playing at home. It's been a long time since Purdue has actually lost back-to-back games in West Lafayette.
Yeah, going back to that 96 game we were talking about, 93 and 96, the last time Ohio State won both. And you're right. Again, These are signature games for Purdue. The 2000, the Holy Toledo game, we can go through them all. And 2004, Purdue scores in the last minute to beat Ohio State. 2009, not a 1-5 Purdue team beat Terrell Pryor, and Ryan Kerrigan had his way with Ohio State. And 2013 wasn't so good. Ohio State could have won that one 100-0. But the next time they came to town, 2018, we all know what happened with the Tyler Trent game, and Purdue scoring to 21 points in the final quarter to win easily, 49-20. The most points I think Ohio State had ever given up in a 29-point win. You may not see that again in any of our lifetime, but that was a memorable night that, unfortunately for Purdue fans, in some ways, it has to sustain you through these times that Purdue is going through right now.
Man, yeah. Whenever it's a dreary day, you're down in the dumps about Purdue football, just type in Rondale Moore, Ohio State highlights, and you'll immediately be cheered up from what he did in that game, among others. You have a favorite win over the Buckeyes? This is so weird, but like when I think of, obviously, I think the first thing that you think of, because recency and just the impact of it, is Tyler Trent. It was more than sports. If you were in Ross-Ade Stadium that night, like you felt something besides just the elation of a big win, right? There was something that was impactful that happened there. But, this is sort of quirky. I just remember Danny Hope, for some reason, was in the middle of the pile of students with his whistle. And I just remember he was celebrating. And, the Danny Hope era wasn't always, rainbows and sunshine, right? And it was a difficult time. But, just to kind of see how elated he was and how euphoric really the student body was after what was a difficult start to the season. That's a fun memory.
Yeah, that year was an organic, certainly, from Danny. I remember coming out. We used to have the Tuesday press luncheons, and Danny and I were happening to be walking out of that press luncheon. Purdue, remind you, is at 1-5 at that point. Now, they had a close loss at Oregon. They were frustrated by the way they were playing, had a close loss against Notre Dame that year as well. He looked me right in the eye, and I didn't mean anything to him, but he said, "We're going to beat Ohio State. I'll guarantee it." In that Danny Hope type voice, we're going to whoop them. And right, that game really wasn't all that close. Aaron Valentine and others had big days. Joey Elliott had a huge day at quarterback, and Ryan Kerrigan showed why he was an outstanding NFL. Ended up being an outside linebacker. He was a DN that day, and just was terrorizing Ohio State in that 26-18 win.
Yeah, that was a 5-6 team that, if the coin flipped the other way, could have very easily been like an 8-4 team. If you go back and you look at some of those games, and they had some tough luck, and then we talked about the Danny Hope timeout in the game, and so there's, but yeah, like Keith Smith, and they had some. Kerrigan, obviously, they had some talent. Ralph Bolden on those squads too. It's just interesting to kind of look back and see the success that they've had at Ross-Ade Stadium against Ohio State, even though obviously tomorrow maybe is a different deal and a different circumstance with where the program is right now compared to where it's been recently. But Alan will lead Golden Black's post-game coverage after every game this season, so check those shows out after many of these on many of these same platforms, of course, after the Buckeyes. So mid-afternoon on Saturday for the Golden Black post-game wrap-up, and he'll join us for the last two Friday shows of the year coming up to conclude the 2025 season. Thanks so much, Alan, and we'll bring you back
Sounds
here on the
great,
roundtable.
Derek. Thanks so much.
That's our friend Alan Karpik, publisher of GoldenBlack.com. Golden Black Radio is brought to you by Sand Valley Resort with cozy accommodations and farm-to-table dining. Sand Valley is where adventure and connection come together. Book your winter escape today at sandvalley.com, as well as the Whitaker Inn for unparalleled comfort and cuisine. Visit the Whitaker Inn. It is also basketball season, so I have to go ahead and do this because I don't want Brian to get mad at me. I don't want to make sure that I'm on brand here. Bang, there we go. We're switching over to Mackie because we're talking hoops with Brian Neubert, GoldenBlack.com columnist and basketball knower, who joins us now on the show. I aim to please, Brian, so hopefully no complaints on the background. Let's start here. Purdue's 1-0. Fletcher Loyer is an imperfect basketball player, but he's a pretty damn good basketball player, I've noticed. Ever since his days at Homestead, I've always been a fan. And if he is your third or fourth guy, then you have a really, really good team. Like that's how I've always sort of felt about Fletcher Loyer, even going back a couple of years. And for as much as some fans seem to be laser focused on complaining about his limitations, and we know what his limitations are, am I right in saying, this is a guy, I know he's not going to score 30 points every game. He's going to end his Purdue career as one of the most comprehensively accomplished players from both an individual and team standpoint in program history.
The ultimate compliment I can give a player, in my opinion, like Fletcher Loyer, is one I've used a couple times over the years. You're going to realize how good he was when he's gone. I think I'm not picking on you here, Derek, but I think we need to. The court of public opinion isn't exactly the Harvard Law Review sometimes, and when you see a skinny white dude who looks like your paper boy, I think people tend to look at that a certain way and then never get over it. They also don't really look all that deep into it. You don't necessarily look into the impact his offensive gravity has on the whole operation. The fact that Purdue becoming one of the preeminent offensive college basketball programs in the country has aligned with him being part of that team, a starter, a heavy minutes player. The shooting is just part of it. The skill, the IQ, the offensive influence he has on this team, the coach on the floor type of stuff. I know people always associate that with the point guard, but the guy who thinks the game better than anyone on this team is Fletcher Lawyer. The communicator on this team right now is Fletcher Lawyer. And at some point in time, people got to give him credit. And, I've been, I'm not saying fighting this battle because I'm not involved in this. I'm just an observer. I'm just a caveman. But just people, this is based on just what you see on the social medias. This is one of the most misunderstood, underappreciated, players I've covered at Purdue, and there've been a few of them. But no, he's a really good player, an outstanding player. He'll play professionally somewhere if he wants to. He will get an NBA look. It's a shooter's game. It's a shooter's league. He will get an opportunity with somebody somewhere at some point. If not, he has the mind for coaching, which he inherited from his dad, passed on to his brother, and on to him, obviously, and his mom. And they're basketball people, and coaches' kids do well at Purdue. And Fletcher Lawyer has done very well at Purdue. And he's really been a big part of elevating this program to where it is right now.
Another guy that did very well in his season debut was Jack Benter, and I know penciling him in for 11-6 is probably a stretch, but for another guy who, there were some people cautious about his recruitment. He's from tiny Brownstown Central, a 2A school. Was the opener another indication that kid belongs exactly where he is right now?
Yes. Everything I just said about Fletcher Lawyer, bank that and put it on this radio show in 3 years. When Jack Benter's going into his senior year at Purdue, presumably. No, he's all the same stuff. He's a really skilled offensive guy. Obviously, he's got a good body on him now. I don't think he's a guard playing forward. I think he's a forward who can play like a guard. When you look at him physically, obviously he's not going to be the most rugged guy in college basketball, but I don't think he's going to be a traffic cone either. I think he's shown some toughness. He practiced all summer against Trey Kaufman-Moran, the most physical player in the Big Ten, and is still here to tell about it. So it's I think he's got a really bright future at Purdue. I think he can really help them now, but I think he can be a really big part of Purdue's future as well. And I think there's no reason at all to think at this point that this isn't Purdue's power forward, four, if you will. The 3 seasons after this one at Purdue. Guy can pass, guy can dribble, guy can think the game, guy knows the game, guy can shoot, guy's unafraid to shoot, showed some energy, showed some toughness the other day, albeit just against Evansville, but nevertheless, energy's energy. And when you're playing in your very first college basketball game and you're not afraid to shoot, and you're playing hard and you're making plays as a rebounder when that's not what has defined you as a player in your career, it just speaks to his readiness to play, the job he's done developing into what he is right now, the job Purdue has done developing him into what he is now. And I think he can really help Purdue this year. When you look at what he did against Evansville, that's not a 30-minute a game role for him this year. This is a 10-minute deal for him. And I think people have to look at that Evansville game that way. When you look at the rebounding, whatever it might be, you have to contextualize it with the reminder that this was not the team Purdue is going to play the rest of this year with. Once Trey Coffman is back, things change. The rebounding, becomes something different. The offensive dynamics become something different. But what Jack Benner showed you against Evansville is that when he comes in, you can be really different, and you can really sucker punch opponents with something very, very different.
Speaking of the front court, I saw one of your many fearless predictions on Golden Black Tom before the season. You had meshed together Jacobson and Clough into one giant big man. Maybe we can come up with a name for that, like Jacob Luff or Cloughson or something like that. I don't know. I'll workshop that a little bit. But
Cloughson.
You said, okay, see, that's why we talked this stuff out. You said that you believe Purdue is going to get all league contributions from the combination of those two. Yeah. And they did so, albeit against Evansville. I think they went for 19 or 18 and 10 or something, or
20 and 18
and 17, or
20 and 18.
If this team is going to contend for a title, is that what's going to have to happen?
Well, it's not going to. Every game's not going to be 20 and 18.
Sure.
But
overall, can they? Is that level of production from those two what they going to?
Yeah, I think you're going to get, a presence on the defensive glass. You're going to get a presence on the offensive glass. You're going to get actual rim protection this year, which you didn't have last year. You're going to get efficiency around the rim offensively. So when somebody doubles Trey Coffman or when the five man's rolling to the basket off Trey Coffman and pick and roll, there's a guy there who can catch the ball and put it in the basket, and at a very high percentage rate. And last year, I've talked about this a bunch of times here, is that when you look at Purdue's shot chart last year, it was one side of the rim was all green, which is good, and the other side of the rim was all red, which is not good. And that was an indication of Purdue did not have a presence opposite Trey Coffman that could finish at the rim. And all due respect to the guys who left, but Daniel Jacobson, 7'4", can jump, catch the ball up high. He's going to get bodied up. He's going to get hip checked. He's going to fumble some balls probably every now and then because he's not quite there with his strength yet. But he's going to make 75% of his dunks, if not 90% of his dunks. Oscar Clough is not going to jump over anybody, but he's going to finish at the basket. And that's going to boost Braden Smith's assists. That's going to make Purdue a more efficient basketball team, and that's going to make them just much harder, not to stop on defense, but to keep that point total within the realm of possibility for opponents to actually score more points than Purdue, because a lot of the meat they left on the bone last year is going to be consumed this year.
Oh, you're right about that. Brian, I want to leave you with this. It's kind of a football thought, but I came to this football thought at a basketball game. I was sitting at Butler's basketball game on Wednesday night. I can basically walk across the street and go to Hinkle Fieldhouse. I've always enjoyed going. I love that place, even though I have no really personal ties or emotional investment in Butler. And I just kind of thought about this for the programs, kind of in Butler's spot or in Purdue football spot, these programs that are sort of on the bottom rung right now in a major college football or major college basketball conference. It just, I'm not trying to be doom and gloom. It just feels tougher than ever to kind of climb out of it. Is there some concern that you have that while they're probably not going to go 1-11 or 2-10 every year, that Purdue football is just going to have a real grind to get themselves out of this and climb back up the ladder again in this current college sports world?
One more thing real quick about size. I think Oscar Clough and Daniel Jacobson too really give you a lot of transition potential, which can make you really good offensively. All right. When I hear a certain question,
deep question.
When I hear a certain question, there's a threshold of stuff I have to get out. And that was the last gasp of that collection of stuff I had to get out. It's a good question. It's going to be interesting to see how things go. Purdue is allotting the full revenue sharing money. I've always said the parity comes from Purdue not necessarily outspending people, but good players at Purdue having the opportunity to not have to be out there looking for something from somebody else, because the money at Purdue will be good enough, or will be something at least. I think at Purdue, it's a situation where when you become a star, when you become a really good player, you can get NIL opportunities that people are still promising people. And there's data out there right now that a lot of these NIL deals are actually getting approved at other places, which means that either the CSC is just clearing everything, or people are actually boiling things down to real deals. When coaches are complaining about things, that means the rules are working. When you hear coaches complaining about, we don't know what the rules are, we can't get our guys' deals approved, it's because your deals are crap, and you're still doing what you were doing before, and you're not supposed to be. So, be that as it may, I think Purdue is going to do things by the new book. Um, I think you got to judge them not on the money they have, but what their coaches are spending their money on. I think that's, I not to relitigate the Ryan Walters era at Purdue, but no, he didn't have as much money as other people, but look what he spent it on. It was spent on a team that won one game, and a lot of guys who clearly were just shaking Purdue down and taking advantage of a team that was a really easy mark because it was desperate and it had a coach who didn't have any experience doing this type of stuff. I think Barry Odom and his staff are more savvy about this stuff. I think the landscape is more normalized now, so that there's benchmarking that can be done. But you got to get some positive things to happen first and foremost to get on people's minds, so that when Purdue reaches out to you, there's some resonance. And Purdue hasn't been able to get some wins this year that could have really helped with that, smoothing out period. But I don't think the gloom and doom part of this is really a thing quite yet. We'll see how things go. But I don't think anybody after Darrell Hazel would have thought that within 3 years Purdue would have 3 All-Americans on its team, 4 All-Americans on its team, whatever it was. The Brahms came in. They weren't builders. They were flippers. They put a nice shiny coat of paint on top of a old beater, and look what happened. It can happen again. Money's above the table now. So Purdue gets the 3 right guys, the 4 right guys. That sort of thing can happen again. And if it does, and you get some momentum, you get some positive energy, you've seen how quickly things can flip at other places, both for the better and for the worse. You've seen Wisconsin completely go in the tank because they can't adjust to the new times. You've seen Indiana all of a sudden turn into the hottest thing in college football because they could acclimate to the times. That they made a really good hire. They've been able to get some guys out of the portal. They were able to bring a really good FCS team with them, basically, and they hit the ground running. If Purdue can just get a few of those elements, just to put one good team together that can, kind of make some hay and generate some momentum, get the fans back on board if they have somehow gone wayward. That's kind of all it takes. It can flip pretty quick. I know football programs are more like battleships than they are, sports cars, but I think nowadays it's a year-to-year thing. And I think once Purdue gets some continuity and some of the guys they're going to bring back next year, if those guys get better, and then you get the right newcomers to go along with them, hopefully for their sake, less than the number they had to bring in this year. You want that number to boil down, I think, every year. But if you can get a core like this current group of sophomores on this team has potential. If you can get guys to grow with them into something, you might have that year, next year, the year after, where you can win some games. But you just need positive stuff to happen, first and foremost. I know that's oversimplification, but that's the deal.
Yeah, there's been a lack of that. Sorry, I know that was completely out of left field, but what better time for deep philosophical questions about where we are in college sports than a half-full Hinkle Fieldhouse on a Wednesday in November? So
well, I'm like a Teddy Ruxpin from back in the day. I have like 10 topics, just kind of programmed into me.
Flip the cassette tape.
So as soon as you hit one of the buzzwords that activates one of those buttons, I just go. So it just so happens the landscape of college sports is one of those buttons. So you happen to hit my hot button. So
Well, we did talk about 1989 earlier in the show, and that was probably Teddy Ruxpin's heyday right around then. So, yeah.
Laser
works
tag
out
and
nicely.
photon.
You can see and hear Brian on Golden Black's post-game football coverage, but most importantly, the hoops coverage is here to stay as the season's upon us. If you're not already, you're going to want to be a Golden Black subscriber for all his hoops thoughts. Boilers in action later tonight. Game number 2 against Greg Campy. I love that guy. And his
Awesome.
Oakland
The
squad.
best. The best.
Brian will have the post-game wrap right here at goldenblack.com. Thanks, my man. We will talk again on Monday.
You're welcome. Thanks, Derek.
That's Brian Neubert, goldenblack.com columnist and basketball knower. Before we get to our roundtable and bring the guys back together to end tonight's show, let's hear from our friends at BetMGM.
Hey, college football fans, it's time to lock in on those Saturday showdowns with BetMGM. Whether you're betting the underdog or riding with the favorite, take your excitement to the next level with a college football odds boost token. Log into your BetMGM account to receive your token. Then place a bet on any college football matchup with your activated token. If your boosted bet hits, you'll score a bigger payout. Claim your odds boost token and be sure to activate it before placing your bet. The game is about to kick off, so feel the rush and own the moment. BetMGM, make it legendary. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 and over only. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. First bet offer for new customers only. Subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards are non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 7 days. In partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel.
It is roundtable time. Look at all these handsome faces. Tom Dienhart, Dub Jealous, and Alan Karpick back with me, Derek Schultz, to discuss Week 10 of the Big Ten and the Boilers and Buckeyes. I guess what we should start with, guys, first college football playoff rankings of the year. We waste a lot of oxygen on these this season. The beauty of college football is that the season, 9 times out of 10, the season works itself out, right? So where you are the first week of November, it really doesn't matter at the end of it. But anything jump out to anybody? Surprises or thoughts about where we are as far as the college football playoff rankings were concerned? I thought they were pretty self-explanatory. I know some people, Tom, had problems with Notre Dame's ranking ahead of some of the the SEC teams.
Yeah, some people did. They don't think the resume is quite up to snuff at this point, but nothing really. Memphis is going to be, I guess, your group of 5, if you will, team in right now. So, yeah, what 3 Big Ten teams in it right now, correct? Ohio State, Indiana, and Oregon. So, yeah, I guess nothing really stuck out at me. I kind of wonder why they even do this snapshot. I guess I know why they do it. They want the publicity, but yeah, like you said, an incomplete picture, but I guess gives us a starting point, a pecking order, sort of frames everything as we're hitting in that stretch run of the season here.
Yeah, that's looking at the Big Ten slate and Oregon being part of that college football playoff, Alan, that game against Iowa is very intriguing to me.
Yeah.
Oregon's resume, and this is through no fault of their own, it's aged poorly, right? Because Penn State's gone in the tank, and they played some of the dregs of the conference. I mean, Rutgers and Wisconsin. Northwestern's probably the best team that they played so far, and that's a plucky Northwestern team, but that's certainly not anything to write home about. I just think Iowa is the place where you just don't want to go. It's just, even when they're not good, it's just a headache to get down in the muck with them and try to win like a 15-12 game. You know what I mean?
Well, Indiana won a 20-15 game, right?
Yeah, there you go.
And exactly, it really was its closest game. I think it's interesting. Oregon, could really mess things up if Iowa, in some ways, if Iowa wins that game, and then all of a sudden, Oregon's still got to play Washington, and Washington's still on the outside looking in. Michigan's lurking out there. I know they're going to have to pull another shocker over Ohio State in all likelihood, but it's a weird deal. And yes, it would be easiest for the Big Ten if Oregon would just hold serve and win the games it's supposed to win, but it's got a tough schedule. And winning in Iowa City on a day that will be November-like and be cold for those Ducks, so to speak, at Iowa City. That's what's going to be an interesting deal to see how they manage that game and whether they get out of there alive.
Dub, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here. We saw yet another, what I think is a blue blood, Auburn, even though it would be I figured I would just not sleep. I know that they would give me a great check to cash every single week, but that job would be very difficult, I feel like, at Auburn. But that job is opened up. Penn State is open. LSU is open. Florida is open. I mean, and we still might have Florida State and some of these others, depending on the hopscotch here. Some other jobs that we don't think are going to open might end up opening. if it were, kind of gun to your head here, what's the best job that has come open so far this year, and why do you think that is?
Now, I'm saying this without knowing exactly what the resources are, but off the top of my head, I would say LSU. Just their history, their more recent history, I guess. I think a lot of people can win there. Brian Kelly, it's not like he laid an egg in Baton Rouge. I thought, and I'm not necessarily a Brian Kelly guy, but he had him, fighting for college football playoff eligibility every year. It's just, he couldn't get over the hump, and that's the same with James Franklin and some of these other guys that got let go. But I think I would go LSU, but I also think that, Florida's a really good job. I think Penn State's a really good job too. So there's going to be a lot of good jobs open this season, or this coming off season. And thankfully that there will be, because I think that makes it really fun for guys like us that follow the sport and love to see all the chaos.
I was going to say one thing, and you guys, Tom and Dub, talking about this, but just how fortunate did Purdue force Gumpet's way not to have a coaching search this year? Can you imagine what Purdue would be in if it had to deal with that?
Yeah, very.
I wonder if that's why Wisconsin didn't let go of Luke Fickell.
Maybe.
But you know what? If they end up 2-10, I mean, how could you possibly bring him back, right? I mean, that's gonna force your hand.
That's true
at that
as well.
point. But it's just interesting, the world that we live in right now. Like, if you're, I saw Tennessee fans complaining about Heupel as well, even though he's brought them a level of stability that they really haven't had since Philip Fulmer. And you look at LSU and Florida and Auburn, like all these teams want to go 11-1, and it's just not mathematically possible in that league for everybody to do that and be in the playoff every single year. And that's the expectation.
It's like the NFL now. These coaches get maybe 1 or 2 years, it seems like, to try to get things figured out. They cycle you out. As the money's gone up, the pressure's gone up, the stakes have gone up, and the expectations have gone up, obviously, at these schools. So, it's probably the new normal. We're seeing coaches fired during the season. That used to never happen. Guys getting fired in October now. So everything's getting accelerated here. Everybody wants to get ahead of the curve. And the Big Ten, again, Chris McIntosh, they came out, I think today in Madison, said Fickell's coming back. I just cannot believe that. Good luck selling tickets and getting recruits. But, I still want to see what happens at USC. They're 6-2. What if they go 7-5? Is Lincoln Riley's time going to expire? So, the Big Ten could have its share of changes too. Obviously, with Penn State already opening up. Will Kirk Ferentz retire at Iowa? Who knows? And maybe Jonathan Smith at Michigan State's on a hot seat there. So, and maybe there's a curveball that's going to come that we don't even see coming. So, the Big Ten is certainly going to be right up there with its share of tumult when it comes to coaching changes.
You can see 75% of this group after the Purdue-Ohio State game coming up tomorrow afternoon for the goldenblack.com postgame show. It'll be led by Alan Karpick, our friend Nate Barrett, part of that as well. And Tom and Dub will come on to talk Boilermaker football after the Boilers and Buckeyes from Ross-Ade Stadium. But if you're not already a subscriber, goldenblack.com for Tom, for Dub, for Brian, for everybody. Take advantage right now during crossover season, because we got football and men's basketball cooking as well. Guys, appreciate it as always, and we will talk again next week.
All right, thanks
guys.
That's Tom Dienart, Alan Karpick, and Dub Jellison, and that is our show, Golden Black Radio Friday edition. Thank you to our presenting sponsors, Academy Sports and Outdoors, as well as Purdue Federal Credit Union, the official credit card for Purdue fans. East End Grill and Ripple and Company, 2 distinctive bistros across the street from one another on the far end of Main Street in Lafayette. The Whitaker Inn for unparalleled comfort and cuisine. Visit the Whitaker Inn. By Sand Valley Resort with cozy accommodations and farm-to-table dining. Sand Valley is where adventure and connection come together. Book your weekend winter escape today, I should say, at sandvalley.com. And the Purdue Institute for Cancer Research, which has a history of innovation, one goal for the future: defeat cancer. Join the fight and donate to the Purdue Institute for Cancer Research today. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons. We would love for you to leave a 5-star review and comment on your favorite podcast platform. That would be awesome. Don't feel obligated to do so. That is merely the request of the lowly Golden Black Radio host. And don't forget to enable alerts. That really is important. We upload new content just about every day. While you're at it, why not subscribe to goldenblack.com? As I mentioned, if you need a pot sweetener here, by joining the biggest Purdue community on the internet and using promo code PU1 at checkout, we're going to give you 2 months of your monthly subscription for just $1. $1. $1 first 2 months. Goldandblack.com, the best Boilermaker coverage on the internet. PU1 promo code at checkout. You get Tom, you get Dub, you get Brian, you get Carm, you get Nate, you get Alan, you get Knucklehead Central, you get me, you get the whole deal at goldandblack.com. And we really appreciate those of you that are already subscribed and chiming away at Knucklehead Central. We always appreciate those comments too. Purdue-Ohio State postgame show, as I mentioned, it'll go on these same channels following tomorrow's game. So be sure to check back in then. And we will return on GBR for our usual Tuesday edition. But until then, I'm Derek Schultz. Enjoy the game tomorrow. Have a tremendous weekend, and we will see you next time right here on Gold and Black Radio.